net operating income and your mortgage was $50,000 a year, which would leave you 50 net cash flow, and you put 200 down, think about that. If you put 200 down and got 50,000 a year, your cash on cash would be 0.25 or 25% cash on cash per year, which, by the way, is extremely excellent. Don't expect to get that on every deal. As your cash down payment goes up, your cash on cash return goes down. But let's go back to the formula. The all in is the denominator. So the more money you put down and the less you borrow, the less you borrow, the more down payment, the smaller your cash on cash, because it's basic math. It's the denominator. The bigger the denominator, the lower the cash on cash. So cash down payment goes up, cash on cash goes down, cash down payment goes down, cash on cash goes up. Works beautifully. So the next formula we're going to talk about is average rate of return. This is important if you're buying on a short-term, 3 to 5 year type of deal, maybe 10 years most. We want to look at what you're going to earn as an average rate of return over the life of the investment. So it's the total cash flow that you had for those 3, 5, or 10 years, plus what you made when you sold it, the back-end profit, and then we're going to divide that back by the number of years. So we take our cash flow, let's say it's a 5-year deal, 5 years of cash flow, plus the net profit when you sell, add those two together, and divide by 5 years. And that will give you your average rate of return. So that's not exactly the ultimate way to do it, because we have to calculate present value, discounting future dollars or cash flow into present value dollars. If it was a 5-year deal, especially if it was a 10-year deal, what's worth more, cash now or cash later? So we have to discount it to its present value. As an example, Joe wins the lotto. You get $50,000 a year for 20 years, or you get $10 million now. Which one would you take? Of course, Joe's going to take $10 million now. That doesn't always work out that way. It might be $6 million now, or $10 million over 20 years. But you understand the point. It's people would rather have cash now than cash flow over a period of time if it's the same amount. So the formula for calculating what we call internal rate of return is the average rate of return discounted to present value. So write down this formula. It's 0 equals K over sigma C. I'm just kidding. You don't have to write down this formula. You can get a cash flow calculator online to calculate internal rate of return. But it basically, by definition, is your annualized effective compounded return rate. We're not going to have a quiz. You don't have to remember that. So let me give you an example so we can put these formulas all together. You have a 10-unit apartment building with $1,000 market rent per unit. That's $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year. Vacancy of approximately $10,000 per year. So your gross effective income is $110,000. You have operating expenses of $40,000 per year. Therefore, you have a net operating income of $70,000 per year. So let's go back and redo this so you understand it. Your gross scheduled income is $120,000 a year. Your vacancy is $10,000 a year. Your operating expenses are $40,000, which is 40 into 110 is about a 38% operating expense ratio, pretty good. Your net operating income is $70,000 a year NOI. Okay, no mortgage into account yet. Okay, it doesn't matter if this is free and clear or you're buying it with a mortgage, doesn't matter. The asking price is $1 million. So how do we calculate the cap rate? The cap rate is the net operating income of 70 divided by the asking price of $1 million, which equals 0.07, or what we call a 7 cap, or 7% capitalization rate. The asking price is $1 million. The NOI is $70,000 a year. The seller is willing to carry with 20% down, $200,000 down, and 5% interest-only payments. Now, why did I do 5% interest-only payments? So the math is easy. Why do you think? So if he's carrying $800,000 at 5% interest only, it works out to a nice, clean $40,000 a year in payments. Therefore, the net cash flow is the $70,000 NOI minus the $40,000 interest payments, which gives you a net cash flow of $30,000 per year. The cash on cash, $30,000 a year in net cash flow divided by the down payment of $200, which equals 15%, 0.15 or 15% cash on cash. And if you hold it for 5 years and got $30,000 a year in net cash flow, that'd be $150,000 in cash flow over 5 years. Let's say you sold it for a net $1.2 million after, when I say net of closing costs and broker's fees. So your back end profit is $200,000. You bought it for $1 million, sold it for $1.2 million. So the $150,000 cash flow over 5 years plus the $200,000 capital gain gives you a total of $350,000 in net cash flow. We take that $350,000, divide it back over the 5 years we own it, which gives us $70,000 profit per year, and $70,000 divided by our original $200,000 investment gives us a 35% average rate of return per year. Now, if you're lost on the math, just pause for a second and follow the logic. If you made $30,000 a year for 5 years, that's $150,000 cash flow. Remember, our annual rate of return was 200,000 divided, 30,000 divided by 200, which is 15% per year. But at the end, we got a chunk of money. Remember, we got 200,000. So that brought our average rate of return up to 35%. Now we have to discount it to its present value to get the IRR, internal rate of return, which, take my word for it without plugging it into a financial calculator, it's about 22%. That means you invested $200,000 in this thing, and after 5 years, you earned an internal rate of return of 22% per year for 5 years. That's what internal rate of return. That's why it's such a crucial number. If you plan on a medium hold, 3 to 5 years, if you're just going to hold it forever, it doesn't matter. Does not matter. All that matters is what you're earning annually. Okay. If you have questions, by the way, as we go, please pop them in the Q&A or in the chat.